The St. Louis Blues have gone 0-3 in preseason games. Is this even a concern? I'll talk more about it coming up here on Locked On Blues.
You're Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And a good Thursday, September 26th. I am your host of Locked On Blues, Haley Taylor Simon, talking to you all things about our St. Louis Blues here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today on Locked On Blues, I'm going to talk about the Blues going 0-3 in preseason games so far. And of course, I lost to Columbus last night. I will talk about that. Is this year different? What does that exactly mean? I'll explain and go T-Birds because some moves have been made. And I am excited for the Thunderbirds this season. I'm a huge AHL person, by the way. Besides me loving the NHL, I'm a huge AHL fan. So I am excited about how the T-Birds are going to do. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. So the St. Louis Blues lost last night to the Columbus Blue Jackets 3-0. And I just want to mention this. The Blue Jackets, they did a really nice thing for Johnny and Matt last night, and it was beautiful to I listened to on ESPN, so it was beautiful to hear. And again, I just want to send my condolences out. I'm going to be very honest on this because I feel like this is a time where it doesn't matter what team, you do things for, whatever. I do stuff. I cover the Flyers for another outlet. And Johnny and Matt's father, was actually at our practice facility the other day, and it was beautiful, and it really breaks your heart. So I just want to send my condolences out. I mean, I think seeing him there and just how all the guys treated him and spoke about him was just a really nice thing. So I know not Blues, I'm sorry, but this is bigger than a specific team. This is something that's really tragic in the hockey community, and I just love how everybody is coming together. So anyways, I had to mention that in today's episode because it just felt like the right thing to do. Last night, Hofer and Ellis, they were in net last night, basically combining playing time, adding depth. Obviously, we know it's going to be Jay Binns, then Joel Hof, and then Vadim, and then Ellis, and then Cranley. So that's, we have really good depth when it comes to our goalies, and I think that's one thing that's very positive. Now, last night, was that a positive game? Well, the defense really wasn't performing well, and I feel like that's been something I've noticed a lot so far in these preseason games, is that the defense just looks a little off. However, I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt that maybe the right pairings aren't together yet. Still things to work on. But there is positives about last night despite the score, so I will get into that. So Zach Bolduc, he was leading the Blues with 6 shots on goal and 11 attempts. Truly amazing for Zach Bolduc. I mean, early in the game, he was playing with our boy, the best player on the Blues, Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou. And he did look comfortable. And here's the thing. When the game was, I want to say, like, maybe the first 10 minutes, like, he looked like he was on fire. And by looking, I mean hearing, because I was listening to the broadcast because out-of-market games. But it definitely was something that was great to listen to, and how he had possession of the puck. So that was my notes on him. Jay Folk last night, he looked good. I mean, this is the first time that we're seeing him play since last season, healthy at least. And the thing with Justin Folk is, right, he was on the top power play, and he did have 5 shots on goal. The skating was actually quite well for him with nice long strides, and his speed and agility were kind of still there. He didn't have any hits, but a part of me is kind of like, you know what, save that for the regular season. I'm not going to be upset if I don't see that in a preseason game. However, it does make me wonder, was he afraid to maybe take those chances again? But he looked good health-wise, and that just made me feel a lot better. I think that, seeing him play again was one of those things where, you question, how is he going to come back from injury? How is he going to look on the ice? How is he going to be able to take control? But overall, I think he did a really good job in composing himself. He had good play. And again, the play isn't, a problem, it seems like. It seems like he's able to maintain that. So that was a positive takeaway I had from last night. Ryan Suter made his St. Louis Blues debut last night. And he played a lot of minutes, too. He played 25 minutes, which is a lot for Ryan Suter. I know we talked a lot about what we see from Suter this upcoming season and not maybe as many minutes on the ice. But last night I was like, okay, Ryan Suter playing 25 minutes. I feel like he was on the ice like majority of the time I was watching. I was actually quite surprised about that one. But yeah, anyways, listen. He had a couple of little mess ups early on, right? But he did have a great game. I mean, considering that he's 39 years old, he did have 5 shot attempts. And, I think he's going to be a solid piece of the blue line. Maybe not playing as many minutes. Okay. Like, let's not do that. However, I was very impressed with his performance. And it's just a testament to the fact that he's 39 years old and he can still play the game of hockey and not badly. It was actually quite impressive. So let me know, were you surprised by Ryan Suter? Because I kind of was. I was not expecting him to play that much. Kessel had a hip check last night. And it was against Jay Christensen of the Columbus Blue Jackets, and he did not see it coming. It was great technique. So I did like that a lot. So that was good. The power play last night, it went over 6. But you might say, Hale, why are you going to be positive about this? Because it did look good early on. Most of the time they were in the Columbus zone. So for me, I take that as a positive because last season, if you want to look back and maybe reminisce on how last season went, they did not spend a lot of time in the opposing team's zone at all. So I take this as a step forward. Yes, it would be nice to have maybe some goals on the power play, maybe some nice, just they did everything but score essentially, which kind of makes me, I wouldn't say I am concerned, St. Louis. I would say I am more like, oh, well, there's room for improvement. This is what preseason is. But now that we have talked about the game last night, and those were my big takeaways. I mean, Robert Thomas is Robert Thomas. Like, it sucks that they got shut out. I will say that because they did have some nice attempts last night. But again, it is preseason. I know I talked about this on yesterday's episode of Locked On Blues about the frustrations of preseason. I said, if your team doesn't win, it's not the worst thing, and so on and so on. There is something called being annoyed, maybe, that your team isn't winning in preseason, but I wouldn't necessarily go and say that this is going to cause me panic for the season ahead. They're finally home on Saturday as we hosting the Blackhawks, who we're going to see in the Winter Classic. But we are finally back at home, so hopefully we will have more of an NHL looking team for that game. We have not a lot of time left, if I'm being honest with you. I mean, when it comes to preseason games, we have the Blackhawks that we're hosting. Then on Tuesday, October 1st, we're hosting the Blue Jackets. We host the Stars on the 3rd. We host the Blackhawks again on the 5th. And then Tuesday, the 8th, let's get cracking as we are in Seattle kicking off the season at 3:30 on a Tuesday. 3:30 on a Tuesday. So a week from this coming Tuesday will be our first regular season game. Now, I saw some jokes on Twitter, people saying, oh, we're getting the losing streaks out of the way now in preseason. I mean, I know I said that it doesn't matter. I mean, it kind of does make me a little concerned, and I think that I would be lying to you if I didn't say I had any concern. I think that the fact that the team isn't winning just goes to show that maybe there are some players in the lineup that shouldn't be in the lineup. And maybe they should be with the Thunderbirds. I feel like a lot of the guys that had to go back to juniors kind of got that cut already. I don't think that we had too many guys that happened already, But I think there is a good amount of guys that do need to go back to the Thunderbirds, and we need to condense this training camp roster. I know there's questions about Dvorsky, and I know there's questions. I get the questions. I told you this yesterday, I think Zach Bolduc is going to make the team. However, I do think that this team right now needs to just be a little bit more condensed so we can give the guys who are going to be playing in the regular season in the everyday lineup some more opportunities. I know that we can't see Sonny play yet because he won't be ready until regular season is what at least Doug Armstrong said. Fine. But I don't think having Sonny in these preseason games is going to make the difference that the Blues need to find success in these games. However, they are finding success in other ways. What does that exactly mean? Well, they're finding success on the ice with developing their power play, with good positioning. And the offense isn't what concerns me. What is going to concern me? Well, what's always concerned me? And that is the defense. But again, I feel good with Ryan Suter, and I was like a little bit surprised about that. So, coming up in this episode, I'm going to talk about something that I think we're all kind of thinking, which is heavy on my mind. Is this year going to be different? What does that exactly mean? Well, listen, I will tell you about it, but just I want you to get into the mentality of last season and how you felt at the end of last season. Get back into that a little bit of an annoyed mentality, and then I'll tell you all about it. But first, Gametime. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Listen, Gametime Picks is the absolute best because in the app, you can literally use curated deals to make it easier to find the best price on the seats, the super deal, seat views before you buy, and the lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, and even job loss protection. So it really does have the fans back, which is important for me because with Gametime, I literally use it for everything. Okay, concerts, games, rest in peace Cardinals season, literally everything. So this is what you need to do. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. Is this year for the St. Louis Blues going to be different? The question we all want an answer to. Well, I can tell you this at the very moment. I want to say yes, and I'm going to say yes. So I'm going to say yes. But these preseason games, they really freak me out, okay? And I'm going to be blunt with you. They freak me out. I am not going to come on this podcast and lie to my listening audience and say, yeah, I'm not concerned after watching any of these preseason games. There are things that concern me. And I'm sorry that I have to be the one to say that. I'm sorry that I have to be the one. You know, we need to be for real. Okay? We need to be for real. This team is so much better. Okay? Listen. There is pressure. There is drive for some of these older players. I mean, you need to see more out of Robert Thomas this season. I know I love him and he's the best player on the team, but you need to see him have that consistency. You need to see a lot more out of Jordan Kyrou. You need to see a lot more of some of these older guys, Captain Braden Shen, Colton Parayko, Justin Folk, big fish Nicoletti, because he caught that big fish. You need to see a lot more out of them. And that's what's really frustrating for me is that even Brandon Saad, I mean, you just need to see a lot more. And I think that at the end of the day, it just makes me nervous. I mean, Simon Robertson, he has been impressing. And nobody had him making the team this season, but he's been putting in the work and he's been showing how essential to this team he is. And I'm sorry, but Doug Armstrong said during the before training camp press conference, my bad, I apologize, I'm ranting here because I'm frustrated. He said, these veterans are gonna have to work super hard essentially because these young rookies want their spots. And why is Simon Robertson playing so well in training camp that he's outplaying some of the veteran players? And it makes you think, why are we giving so much money to some of these players? And I'm not saying anyone in specific, I'm just saying genuinely speaking, very general. Why are we giving so much money to guys that won't put their all in at training camp and show and prove that they deserve to be on this team? Yes, you have a contract. Yes, you're going to play here. But at the end of the day, when it comes to playing here for the Blues and wearing the blue note, We take pride in that. Doug Armstrong, he has a lot on the line, okay? Because eventually it will be Alexander Steen taking over. So what I am trying to get at is this, St. Louis. It's very simple, okay? The players that have been here, the players that hoisted that Stanley Cup not too long ago, which it's now becoming longer, they need to step it up because Zach Balduke is playing fantastic hockey. Sure, is he being outplayed by some of the guys? Absolutely. But he's still fighting and he's still putting in that work. Dvorsky, I know he hasn't played the best, but he is at least putting in the work. And for this year to be different than last year, that drive needs to be here, essentially. I mean, you have a very competitive Central Division, and I hate talking about the Stars and the Avalanche and the Predators and the Jets. That's my concern. I'm not worried about, oh my gosh, I'm not worried about the Wild. I'm not worried about the Blackhawks or Utah. Maybe Utah a little bit, but I'm not worried, right? My concern is those top 4 teams heading into the season. Last year, we know what happened with the Blues. They did not make it into the playoffs, okay? They had an opportunity for the second wildcard spot, didn't happen. I really don't know what else the Blues need to do in order to get that wild card spot, in order to make it to the playoffs, because they don't have all this grand old money they've been spending on different players and offer sheets and things like that. They really need to make the playoffs this season. And it's not even a joking manner. I mean, I really do believe that if they don't make the playoffs this upcoming season, they're going to have to rebuild the team. I know. Hot take, Haley. I know. I hear what your comments are. Oh, this is a hot take. But you have an older Jordan Binnington, and I know goalies' longevities do last longer than, the forwards and defenders. I get it. I get how it works, okay? It takes time. It takes time to develop, Haley. Come on, what are you talking about? But I'm also allowed to say it's not like Binner, his contract's going to last much longer. He's only, he's 31 now. He said only 31 because in me, that's like not that old, but in hockey it is. You have to think about that. You have to think about other things. What is this? What are we doing? You got rid of Craig Berube. Okay. Did they think that was going to help fix the Blues? Maybe. You bring in Drew Bannister, who was the head coach of the Thunderbirds, go T-Birds, which I'll talk about. My problem is you make all these changes. You do the offer sheets, you sign the Joseph brothers, Suter, Texier. When are we going to see Texier play, by the way? Speaking of him, you do all these things to help improve your team. But if your core players aren't able to produce, I don't know. Makes you wonder. I mean, last night, and you know how much I love Robert Thomas, and you know I love Ruzi, you know I love some of these guys, right? Was I a little disappointed that they didn't score last night or they didn't stand out to me? Yeah, it was. I've been a little disappointed from a lot of our older players with how they played. And I'm not saying older because I know I talk about Suter. He was fine. I'm talking like the players that have been on the Blues. Yeah, I've been a little disappointed. However, what I will say is that I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt. That is preseason. I just need to see more, I'm happy that the power play at least looked better, or from what I heard, but I just need more and I will feel confident about this team. Do you feel the same way that I do, or am I sitting on this one alone? Because I'm not trying to be negative. I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer. I just need you to understand me, because as fans, we're going to all have different viewpoints and opinions on the Blues, okay? I do a podcast where I talk about my opinions on this team. However, this is a podcast that I want you to be involved in, a podcast where your opinion does matter. You might be thinking, oh my God, Haley, do not worry right now. Everything will be fine. Or you might be like, oh, I kind of see where she's coming from. I don't think there's a right and wrong when it comes to this feeling right now. I think that this is me just saying, as a Blues fan, yeah, I am worried about my team a little bit. I think that there are some really good young players that have been impressing me, but why haven't the older players necessarily stepped up as much? So again, leave me your thoughts. I love when we don't have the same opinion, honestly, because it makes the conversation a lot better. All right, let's go talk about Indeed. If you need a match or a hire, you need Indeed. With over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. One thing that I love about Indeed is that it is leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day. Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences. So the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. All right. So listeners of the show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/locked-on. Just go to Indeed.com/locked-on right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/locked-on. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Indeed you do. Thunderbirds, baby. I am like the biggest Thunderbirds fan. Like my cat Stella, this is Stella. We watch a lot of Thunderbirds games together. So I just wanted to put her in here because, she's with it. She loves when I talk about the Blues and she'll sit next to me wherever I'm at. But let's go talk some T-Birds news. Woo! The St. Louis Blues president of hockey operations and general manager Doug Armstrong announced today that the team has released Sam Bidden, defenseman who was also hurt last night with the upper body injury, which I don't think it's going to be much of anything, Scott Harrington, and forward Matthew Pika from their professional tryouts. All three players will be returning to the team's AHL affiliate, the Springfield Thunderbirds. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, I'm a huge Thunderbirds fan, and I don't care what anybody has to say. I do think that this is actually good for Sam. I mean, I like Sam, but I mean, he was not going to make the team. So Dvorsky survives another day. Listen, with Tyler Tucker, see, it's a confusing situation because he will need to clear waivers and then he will be, I believe, reassigned, if that makes sense. So, there's going to be probably more cuts over the weekend now that I'm looking at the schedule, but it's not something that I am too worried about. I think with the Thunderbirds, and this is the thing, it's time for you to develop. It's time for you to improve. I suspect Tyler Tucker gets sent down. I'm kind of still on the fence about Scott Perunovich. Just based off of his performance, I just wasn't overly thrilled. I think Matthew Kessel's going to make the team, however, so I think he is going to stay up. It's a tough thing. Dvorsky, I keep on going back and forth as I think it's good for him to get that experience with the T-Birds, more ice time. But I really want him to be wearing the blue note. It is such a confusing situation for me because I'm torn between being a fan and looking at this from a media perspective. And I'm like, I don't know. But all I do know is that I love talking about my St. Louis Blues here on the Locked On Blues. And you have been awesome. I feel like this podcast, it took a little bit of a turn, right? I went on this podcast. I just want to be honest with you. A little nervous about doing this, talking to myself essentially. And now when I record this, all I can think about is all the friends I made along the way that are listening that will have great Blues discussion with me. So I love how much of a family we are. I cannot wait to finally come back to St. Louis this season and be back in Enterprise. And until then, I get so excited because I'm planning out the trip already. All right, so until then, I will see you soon. And like always, let's go Blues.